With Robert Costa, we take in an art show some would call a real trip.
There is something surreal happening at the Philadelphia Art Museum. And we don't mean the statue of Rocky Balboa outside. Inside, dreams burst onto canvas, sculpture, and film. All celebrating 100 years of surrealism.
I think that surrealism has many facets.
How many artists are on display here?
About 70 artists.
Matthew Affron is the curator.
Sometimes it wants to enchant you, sometimes it wants to frighten you, but always it wants to take you out of your ordinary comfort zone.
The surrealist movement began in 1924, when Parisian poet André Breton published the Surrealist Manifesto.
And he believed that the imagination is the source of our freedom. And he believed that most of us, well-adjusted, well-situated, well-mannered modern people make a mistake around age 20 when we give up on our childlike imaginations for adult good sense.
He called it a crisis of consciousness.
He believed it was a crisis of consciousness. That to him was a great error in modern life.
Modern life at that time was deeply scarred by the horrors of the First World War. In response, surrealists, partly inspired by the works of Sigmund Freud, proposed a revolution of the psyche, with artists shocking viewers and pushing them to reimagine how they see the world.
Your eyes don't seem to know where to go.
It makes you a little bit uncomfortable.
Artists like René Magritte.
You feel a little bit like your view is displaced. And it's an indefinable feeling, but very powerful for that reason.
Paintings from famous artists like Salvador Dali, Joan Miro, and Pablo Picasso fill the galleries. Making sense of it all can be tricky.
You say there is not a signature style for surrealism, but there are general principles.
There are general principles, there are general techniques. One of those techniques is juxtaposition. Juxtaposition of incongruous things. That is, bringing together things that don't normally belong together into a new hybrid image.
One of the most popular juxtapositions here, Dali's aphrodisiac telephone.
He was lying in bed, had an ice bucket full of lobsters next to the bed. The phone rang, and he went for the wrong thing and picked up the lobster. We don't necessarily need the story to be true for it to be a good story.
The story of surrealism is full of dreams, but by the late 1930s, nightmares too.
Now, what are those monsters? Those monsters are the evil that they thought was falling over Europe and which they predicted would end in another world war.
And when it did, some surrealists fled to North America, carrying their ideas and techniques to the next generation of artists, like Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, and Frida Kahlo.
Did Kahlo consider herself to be a surrealist?
Well, Kahlo was not going to be pigeonholed by anybody. She was not going to be labeled. And she denied the label surrealist. But the way things float in air, the way you see Kahlo actually herself, both as a young girl and as a fetus outside of her mother's body, and that kind of way of working certainly falls within a surrealist orbit.
By the late 60s, the surrealist movement had faded, but it did not disappear. And Matthew Affron says you can still spot its influence in films, music videos,
Let's get unconscious, honey.
and even outside museum walls at protests today.
Surrealism is essentially subversive, and that means that it's not satisfied with the status quo. And it wants us to ask questions.
And there is that surrealism commandment of sorts: transform the world, change life.
That's right. It was not meant to be something limited to the art world or to your private life. It was meant to have an effect in the real world.